Hello and welcome to the Friday Night Chat Show. Hello and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. I am back again. I am Chris, for those of you who don't know, and most of you should do by now. We are diving deeply into season 7 now. There've been a few guests, and it's been fantastic so far. It really has. I have my beer, the Writing Community Chat Show beer, if you will, and I'm looking forward to tonight's show very much. And the guest who's coming on, we've already had a quick pre-chat, and I'm amazed by the setup he's got and the location he's in, so this is going to be really exciting. Just a reminder, the Patreon, this is the only way this show gets support and is allowed to continue. You get some exclusives on there, and you get some giveaways that are only available to the Patreons. So if you're interested, sign up please, and if you are doing that already, I thank you very much. So all of you in the chat already, hello to you, and Anya's in the house, Light is here, hello to you, Linda. Lovely to see you all. I hope you're well. Bit of book news, actually. I don't normally do this, but why not? Out on the 16th of this month, The Man Who Died Twice, which is the second book by Richard Osman, which is the actual sequel to The Thursday Murder Club, which is a record-breaking Sunday Times bestseller. I'm just curious to know if you guys think that's going to have the same sort of success that the first book did. And, to be honest with you, if kind of having a TV show gives you that sort of benchmark to jump from as well. So let us know if you have any thoughts on that. It's quite interesting, and I imagine it will do. I imagine it's already got that massive following. It's already it's a bestseller already. It's not out for another 2 weeks. So that just shows you the gravity of and the pull that man has. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's show is going to be very interesting. I will just pop this up there. In fact, I'll pop his book up in the top corner as well. On the bottom of the screen now, you can see information about that person if you want to check it out, including the website link or address. So if you do fancy looking at that whilst I'm talking to the guest, you can do. And in the top corner right now, you will see his book cover, which is fantastic. And I'm quite excited about this because I know a lot of you guys that listen to the show and watch the show who are actually ex or teachers currently, or ex-teachers as well. So you might relate to a lot of these stories in here. So let's get it going. So tonight's guest, he has worked on Good Morning Britain and ITV News after gaining a master's in broadcast journalism, which is incredible. Spent time undercover as a Deliveroo worker. I also read that he spoke with David Attenborough, which is an absolute dream. And he worked or maybe still work as an assistant producer on the Jamie Vine show on BBC Two. And he has used his experience to write his book, which is Let That Be a Lesson, after spending 10 years as a teacher, which, as I mentioned, some of you will know the struggles with that. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's guest, Ryan Wilson. Welcome, Ryan.
Wow, what a pleasure. What an introduction. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for joining us. And as I mentioned, we had a very quick chat before. Yeah. Let people know where you are.
Well, I'll tell you, I am in Malta on holiday. This is not my house.
That's the first thing I said. Is that your house? Like, no.
This is an Airbnb.
Oh, that is incredible.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, I've got some writing to do, and I thought I'd try and book somewhere in the UK to do it, and everywhere's so expensive in the UK. To go on holiday in the UK is insane.
Wow, it
So
really is.
it was cheaper to come to Malta.
It's fantastic. Well, honestly, thank you for taking the time out of your day, which is, incredible considering where you are, to come and speak to us. And I'm really excited about tonight's show, and I'm sure it's going to be a blast. For the people, by the way, Ryan Wilson is a popular name. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of us around.
There's a Ryan Wilson he's actually also a trainee teacher
Is that
from
right?
Ireland, who is releasing a book soon.
There you
That is a
go.
Ryan Wilson, and there's a Ryan Wilson who's a rugby player. So there's
Yeah,
quite a
that's
few of
right.
you around.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It's not a shame. I mean, certainly the aspiring author called Ryan
Mm,
Wilson might have a bit of
mm,
trouble
mm,
trying to put his name out there.
mm.
So, Ryan, thank you again, and always on this show. We've got three parts on the tonight's show, three segments, if you will. And the first one is always about how you got into writing. I'll play a little video, and then we'll get into that story, and I'm sure it'll be fantastic.
Brilliant.
So the road to writing, fantastic part of the show, which we love. Really get to find the backstory behind this. I mentioned on the intro, Ryan, you've got quite a fantastic career in all sort of different areas that led to this point. So tell us, how did you get to writing? Where did that start?
Wow, blimey. I suppose it starts with when I was a kid. This is a really tragic thing to admit, and it didn't win me many friends as a child. But I really loved school. I loved going to school. I kind of idolized my teachers. I was
Yeah,
really lucky. I had great teachers, at primary school and at secondary school. Um, and so from as early as I can remember, I always wanted to be a teacher, which is not a cool career choice, but it's absolutely what I wanted to do.
do you know
And
what? I'm going to interrupt already. I can't help that. I think it really is, and it really is. It's so influential. As you said, you had a respect for them, and that's what led to your career. So I disagree with you. It's not uncool.
well, it was not popular, and I remember not really being able to understand when I was a child. I thought must be the most popular competitive career choice going, because I thought everybody must want to do a job that's this great.
Yeah.
But it turns out everybody really didn't.
Wow.
So yeah, literally from I think I got a blackboard for my 8th birthday.
That is incredible. Although my daughter's got one of those stand-up
Oh,
blackboards,
does she? Well,
and
good for her.
she's 6 in 2 weeks. So
Bless her. Maybe she'll end
yeah,
up being a teacher. Um, so yeah, I mean, I loved it, and then that nothing really changed all through my teens and early 20s, and I was a teacher by 22, and I loved it. I didn't want to do anything else. I thought it was going to be just brilliant, and certainly to start off with, it was. I absolutely loved it. I loved everything
yeah,
about it. I loved. Um, I still think it's a wonderful, noble, satisfying, fun job. Um, so then I taught for 10 years, and
hmm
sort of progressed, and was the head of English is my subject, so I was the head of English, and then I was assistant head of a school in London, and then things had changed a bit. It wasn't quite as fun as it used to be. There was a lot more pressure. There was a lot more inspection and kind of accountability and budget cuts.
yeah,
And I left teaching then after 10 years, very reluctantly and sadly, but because it just wasn't really that fun anymore. And so the book, I suppose, just came out of that journey of excitement and anticipation and loving it, and then that experience changing, and
yeah,
the sadness of leaving the profession. And what I wanted to do was write a book which celebrates teaching and teachers and talks about how great it is, and all the reasons that it's a brilliant job, but also the difficulties that it brings.
yeah. I mean, as a parent who frequents things
Yeah.
at schools, on your Amazon kind of the advert for it is
Yeah.
it states about chaos at sports day, juggling
Yeah.
parent evenings, and relationships with teens.
Yeah.
All of those things must have been absolutely terrifying to deal with. What was there something that really stood out that you really enjoyed as a teacher, and was there something you kind of not for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I guess everybody here loves books, right, and loves reading, and being an English teacher is the joy of introducing kids to great books.
Yeah,
And I still think that if you've got a group of 14 or 15-year-olds or whatever in a room, and you're reading a great book with them, and whatever the sort of magic alchemy is, that all the stars align and things are going right, and they're into it, and you're reading it out loud, and they're just enjoying it. And that doesn't always happen, obviously, but
yeah,
but when it does, I just think there's absolutely nothing better than that. The first time it happened to me was reading The Catcher in the Rye with the Year 9 group. I remember it really well, and they loved the story, and they got really into it, and they all had opinions on Holden Caulfield, and they would come up to you in the playground at break time or lunchtime and want to talk to you about it. And I think there's few things in life that can rival that absolute joy of sharing the pleasure of literature with a group of teenagers.
yeah,
As for the other stuff, yeah, I mean, most parents are great, and most parents are supportive and helpful. There are definitely some who weren't, and that wasn't my favorite bit of the job, when
yeah,
you felt like you were kind of batting against the parents rather than both being on the same team to try and do the same thing to try and do the best thing for the kid. For example, there's a story I tell in the book of a kid in my class who was like falling asleep in class all the time, just really lethargic, like literally falling asleep sometimes. And I phoned home and said, I'm just a bit worried. His GCSE English is coming up. He seems to be tired a lot of the time. And the mother was like, yeah, he stays up till 3 a.m. playing his Xbox. And I was like, okay, well,
yeah.
that'll be the problem then.
I'm sure I'd be quite tired after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we could, think about taking his Xbox off him for a bit. And she said, no, he really wouldn't like that at all.
Yeah. What, undo parenting?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the point. But
Yeah.
there's this concept that you may do something he wouldn't like, but for his greater good, because he's 14, doesn't necessarily know what the best thing for him is, and that was sometimes frustrating. But yeah, I mean, most parents are great.
Oh, it is crazy. But it's definitely a struggle the modern world has to deal with. And as you mentioned, it kind of stood out the teacher journey that you were on. It obviously changed from the time you started to the time you finished. So I imagine even the bringing things like phones into the classroom kind of blows my mind. That kids can use that and just be so distracted. It just gives them the opportunity not to do what they need to do.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, opinion in the educational world is varied on phones. But I come down, I have to say, against them in schools as much as possible. Or if they're brought in, that they should be, just not seen. You leave them in your bag, and you don't, because, there's bullying carried out by phones a lot of the time. They get nicked, and then you have to spend your entire day investigating how they got nicked and who took it, and you don't really have time for that. And I mean, I see the argument that they can be useful in lessons, and I'm sure some teachers can use them really well to help engage kids in learning, but that was just never my experience. And also, don't you think we look at our phones enough?
Yeah,
Isn't there something to be said for just having a sort of a phone-free time in school? I don't know.
I think so. I mean, so we got to that part, and you kind of moved on, and you think, do you know what? I've had a great career in teaching. I've loved it, and there's been some things I didn't love so much. The next step, how did you approach that, and what was that for you?
Well, I'd started writing a little bit about education for the Guardian, and I was really enjoying that, and I was enjoying that more and more, and enjoying teaching less and less. And so that sort of just one grew and the other decreased, and then I did this. There was a slightly difficult situation in work, and I decided I was going to resign. And I'd written my resignation letter. I was really looking forward to going in and handing it in, and I did it with a big flourish. You know, it was like, I resign. And then I discovered that I didn't have enough pay slips to get the mortgage on my flat, so I had to go back and you know, humbly withdraw the resignation and do another term. But fortunately, they let me do that graciously. And then, there was a lady at the Guardian called Kate Hodge at the time, and she was really kind to me and said, why don't you come and do some freelance shifts on the education desk at the Guardian, which I did. And that was, I guess, the start of writing about education. And then I've always loved radio. And so I did a broadcast journalism master's, as you said, and so I was writing that whole time. And then just one day in 2019, I said to my partner, I've got this weird idea, I might try and write a book. And he was like, okay. So just started writing it.
We'll talk about the book in the next section, you know, how you approach that. But there were a couple of things I mentioned, and I'm not sure about exactly where these were on your journey. You know, you worked for certain broadcasting places and ITV, for example. But there's one thing that really brought my eye to it immediately, and that was the Deliveroo thing. What was this? Can you talk about it, and how did that come around?
It was a slightly bizarre part of my life. I think my CV is a total disaster and a mess, of which that is, you know, a key part. I was basically doing placements at ITV News, trying to get jobs in news, and not very successfully, it has to be said. And the guy who was in charge said, "Look, we need somebody to do this thing." Where we want to, at that time, Deliveroo were not treating their workers as workers. I think they were, so they weren't paying holiday pay. They were saying that you're not a worker, essentially. You're just a, you know, 0 hours contractor or whatever. So they wanted to investigate whether you're a worker. So they said, we're going to give you a hidden camera. So I wore a little hidden camera in my shirt, and I worked as a Deliveroo driver. I went for the interviewing and thankfully got the job. And then just filmed for a couple of weeks what it's like being a Deliveroo driver. And it was really interesting. I mean, and the bit that stands out the most was they said, we want to investigate what happens if you're a bad Deliveroo driver. So like, we want to find out what, like, do they tell you off? Do you get disciplined? Because that's quite important as to whether you're a worker or not. So I had to go and collect somebody's burger, and then just cycle around the block a few times, like for an hour. And then turn up with it really late just to see if I got told off or not. So I felt really bad, but I'm sorry to the guy. Yeah, well, I didn't get told off by them, but what I didn't realize was that the person receiving the burger can see on the GPS that I was just
doing laps around the house.
Just doing laps, and he was like,
that is amazing.
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, what's going on here? 2 seconds, 2 minutes away. 3 minutes away.
Exactly.
4 minutes, 2 minutes away.
So,
constantly.
It was a slightly odd part of that.
That is incredible. First of all, did you feel how was your acting skills when you walked into that interview with the camera on? Were you like, oh, you know, this is some serious? Did you feel like you're undercover in like a serious film?
Yeah.
Did you get busted? Did you get dragged away?
My heart was like, I felt like you must be able to hear the heart on the camera. But it's fine. And I had a list of questions to ask them in the interview to sort of get their reaction, and it was all fine. And it made a good report, and it was, I'm glad I did it. But also I have a lot of respect for Deliveroo and other riders, because it's not an easy job, and it's not well paid. Strong legs,
not much money. Excellent. Let's move on to part 2, and let's talk about your new book. So part 2 is called What's the Story? And this is where we find out about your book that is now about 2 weeks old, I think you mentioned.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's called Let That Be a Lesson. Most people have a copy next to them, and I imagine you don't, do you?
I don't.
No, it's all right. It's up in the top corner. You can see it there. That would be a big stretch to take it on holiday with you, I think. So let people know that don't know what this is. Tell us a bit about that story.
Yeah, well, it sort of covers the 10 years that I've spent in teaching. I hope it's a celebration of teaching, the joy, the pleasure, the hilarity that teaching is, but also a cry for help for the difficulties that the profession faces. And I suppose if you've read This Is Going to Hurt, the book about life as a junior doctor by Adam Kay, I mean, it's fair to say it was a little bit inspired by that, just trying to describe day to day what it's like as a teacher. And I'd say it's what I intended it to be, equal parts funny and sad, thought provoking, moving. So I think that's a reasonable summary.
It is. There were a lot of comments in the reviews that mention how it is quite heartwarming, heartbreaking at times, and a lot of comments about the humour. So when it comes to the humour of the story, I imagine it's kind of like observational comedy. A lot of the stuff that happened.
Yeah.
But was there an element of you factoring that in, or was it just a reflection of the time that you had there?
I really think it's just a reflection of the time. I mean, I think one of the great things about teaching is in a day, you go through comedy, tragedy, all the stuff that kind of makes a good book in a day. So there was just way too much material, if I'm honest. And yeah, I mean, there's funny moments every day. And I hope it's not laughing at the kids. It's all done affectionately, and I sort of think it's just you have to laugh, otherwise you'd kind of go a bit mad.
It is. It's one of those scenarios where it's people's lives, but at the same time, at that age as well. I think you watched Did you ever see the program, The In-Betweeners?
Yeah.
It's such a reflection of how awkward people felt at the same time, and they're discovering life and those things. So we can find it humorous as people who've been there, but at the same time, you've got to be kind of careful of the people that are in that situation.
Well, of course. I mean, a lot of the time, the person there's the butt of the joke is me. I mean, it's very often me cocking things up or getting things wrong. So
I can relate to that. That is literally my life. People are there to laugh at me. I think that's my calling in life. I'm here to make people happy.
Well, and isn't that a lovely thing?
For them.
For them, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you were saying that it was kind of a lot of jokes about kind of what you did in the school and things like that. Are there any stories in relation to that? And on the same time about what we just mentioned, have you had any feedback from the people that may have been in those stories?
Yes. Well, there was, I guess one story was I was teaching poetry, and the poetry of Caroline Duffy, who was then poet laureate, and this lovely GCSE group in North London, and we were doing one of her love poems, and one of the kids said, "Oh, who was the bloke she was writing it to?" And I said, are you certain she's writing it to a bloke? Because as it happens, Caroline Duffy was in a relationship with a woman, and there was a sort of slight buzz went around the classroom. And anyway, we moved on. It was sort of low key. Then fast forward a year later, so a year after all this had happened, and this kid came up to me in the corridor and he said, "Sir, I saw that fat lesbian you taught us about." And I said, "What? Sorry, what are you talking about?" Just trying to puzzle out what was going on in his mind. And he said, "Yeah, that fat lesbian you taught us about died." And I said,
no.
And it's just the day after Margaret Thatcher had died. So I said, "Are you talking about Margaret Thatcher?" And he was like, yeah, she died. And I was like, "Okay, let's just try and unravel this in your head, how this has happened." And I was like trying to explain, actually Margaret Thatcher wasn't the poet we studied, and she was the former prime minister, and she wasn't in a relationship. She wasn't a lesbian as far as we know. And was really pleased with myself that I'd explained all this and thought I'd explained it really clearly and thought he understood. And he walked off, and I was just walking down the corridor feeling sort of pleased with myself. And he said, "Oh, no, I've got it. So Caroline Duffy was in a relationship with Margaret Thatcher." I was like, "No, no."
I mean, how did he arrive at that? I have no idea.
That's
incredible.
Yeah, it's exactly. In terms of feedback, I mean, one of the things we worked really hard on in the book was disguising people so that nobody's identifiable. We had a lawyer read the book to check that. I think generally people I've spoken to here in it are pleased, or they're sufficiently disguised to not know it's them.
That is brilliant. I think that's, those are the kind of stories that do make a career like that special and
Yeah,
unique.
that's lovely. They're lovely moments.
Yeah,
Sort
there's
of.
lots of jobs that people drive on their own or they're in an office, and there's
Yeah,
things that are funny and unique to every sort of career. But I think you're going to get a lot of the humor, a lot more humor, and really
yeah,
emotional connections with when it's in school.
yeah.
Yeah, that's very funny. So, when you wrote this book, coming from a journalism perhaps background before that, and approaching things writing articles, how did you find the transition from writing those to writing a book?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, I mean, this is such an obvious point, but obviously it's longer form. So what I hadn't really done before was consider things like story arc and character development and um, all that sort of stuff. So that was something that we had to do quite a lot of work on at the start. And one of the things my agent and the publisher said to me were, you have to, even if you're writing about yourself, you have to think of yourself as a character. You
Wow.
have to think of the other people in the story, even though you know them as different characters. And that was something we had to sort of work on. So that was definitely different. Um, and yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, I mean, other than that, I think it was pretty similar. It's just trying to make things that are, real life is complicated and messy, right? And it happens in a kind of non-linear fashion. So it's just trying to thrash all those things out and make it into a story which is
Yeah.
readable and makes sense and has got an arc, I suppose.
I'm kind of thinking that how I would approach this, and for yourself, what I think I'd do is just probably spend a few nights with maybe people that were there or myself, post-it notes, writing down funny
Yeah, yeah,
occasions
yeah.
and sad occasions. Was that the process for you?
Yeah, there definitely were post-it notes. And
Yeah.
then you're sort of thinking about what do you want, what's the effect you want to have on the reader. And I kind of like the idea of moving from something where you're laughing one chapter to a really sad chapter the next, and kind of taking the reader on that emotional journey. Because I think that's kind of what teaching is, that you do go from the sublime to the ridiculous. And I kind of like that sucker punch if you sort of think that you're on a light story and then something really serious comes along. But yeah, experimenting with all those things, and yeah, a lot of moving stories around and seeing where they fitted to give the best effect. Yeah, the editing process was largely that, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it does make sense in a structural way if someone's writing perhaps something similar to do that. For someone who may be writing at some point a story like
Yeah,
yours, which is a
yeah,
reflection of life and
yeah, yeah,
that kind of thing, would you have any advice to how they do that?
yeah. It's funny. Somebody said to me, if you want to write non-fiction, um, you should really write fiction, because because in fiction you can tell the truth. In non-fiction, you have to disguise stuff a lot for all sorts of legal reasons, which I hadn't even considered. So, I mean, everything in the book happened and is true, but by the time it had been through the lawyers, it had sort of changed a bit. It's just one thing to be aware of, that the sort of privacy of the people you're writing about is a really big factor. Um, what else? Um, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's just that there's sort of quite a lot. I find quite a lot of trial and error in just finding out, how you take that messiness of real life and make it into something that fits as a story. And as I said, everything that happened in the book absolutely happened, but not necessarily in the order it happened,
Yeah.
or you just have to rearrange things to make it into a book, because real life doesn't happen in the way of a book. I suppose that's what I'd say.
Absolutely, it's great advice. I think that taking things slowly and really taking the time and putting those things together and making sure
Yeah,
that you're not offending people is probably one of the key
yeah,
things.
yeah,
So the question is, that is you've written that book on a reflection of a time of your life that had ups and downs and lots of interesting things. what's next for your writing career? Because it could go in a fictional direction or something
Yeah.
similar about your other experiences. Have you got any idea where
Yeah.
that might go?
I do, and it won't go in a fictional direction because I don't have the talent or the ability to write fictionally. Um, I, I guess there's a couple of things I'd like to do. I have a vague idea that maybe there might be a second book in about changing careers. I think that's
Hmm.
quite hot on a lot of people's agenda, maybe changing from one job to another, and sort of a similar style of book about what my experience is that. Um, I'd ultimately the dream would be I'd love to let that be a lesson into a sitcom or
Yeah.
sort of a maybe like a radio adaptation. So I just think it would work well for that. And obviously I've worked in radio myself, so
Mm.
I can just see I can see that I can see it working in that format.
Yeah.
So those are the two possibilities that I'm exploring at the
Mm.
minute.
So kind of an audio drama based storyline of your book.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I don't
we'll
know.
see.
They have to get some good actors in for that.
I know, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, you never know. You say never fiction, but you never know. I mean, that could happen, right? Or definitely
Well,
not happening.
if I had a different brain and more talent, it definitely could happen.
That's one way to slope shoulders out of that one. Okay, so let's move on to before we get the questions from the community.
Yeah,
I've got a few staple questions to ask you.
yeah. I've seen you ask these. They're hard.
Oh, he's done his research.
They're hard questions.
And what we'll also do is do a new family member. And when I say do a family member, what I'm saying is we'll get someone on Twitter who has
Okay.
recently followed the show,
Yeah.
and we will give them a shout out. So
Brilliant.
yeah, fiction based on real life, says Mario.
Fiction based on real life. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of historical fiction. Is that right?
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. I guess all fiction is kind of based on real life.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe it's not actually.
Okay. Right. First question. First one of these it is a question. What am I doing? First question is if you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be? And that can refer to your obviously journalism career as well.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose I'm very new to writing. Really, I only wrote the first time in 2019. I suppose when I started writing, I thought it was a bit stupid, a bit fanciful. It would never go anywhere. It was probably a waste of a weekend. I should probably spend it, cleaning the flat or
On holiday.
on holiday. So I suppose I'd say, don't think that this is something for other people and not you. And I think that's the advice I've said to a lot of people in the last few months. Believe that you can do it and believe that it is something for you because I didn't.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. There's a lot of people out there that have already talked themselves out of doing something or
Yeah,
attempting something
yeah,
before they've even started it, and I think it's a
yeah,
waste.
yeah,
Very similarly to you, I've only started writing in the past few years, and
yeah,
I've mentioned this before. I was terrible at English in school.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
was young. I wasn't in the right mindset, and it wasn't until I kind of left that and lived in the real world I started growing up and taking things a bit more, not even more seriously, just was able to deal with it a lot more. So it's never really that case where who you are in school, that's it. I mean, as a young person,
yeah,
you will get opportunities,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
never count it out.
What was your English teacher like?
Um, a lot of my classes, I got the feeling that where I was at the time, I was kind of always lagging behind a little bit, and it was always
Yeah,
the case. We're moving on.
yeah, yeah,
I kind of have a thing like you mentioned with targets where and there was a pressure to
yeah,
get the class
yeah,
through,
yeah,
and it was if you can't keep up, you're gonna get left
yeah,
behind.
yeah,
Maths definitely was one of those, and
yeah,
English. But English, I put this on my website. Having now self-published 2 books, write my third. We had to do like an English in the class, write a short story about anything, and I wrote this really rubbish story, but I got laughed at in the class. And I remember it happening, and it doesn't matter how rubbish that was. That probably shouldn't have happened because it's
yeah,
always thrown me off.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
now it's like, you know what, I've got past that and I'm doing what I'm doing. So
Wow. Credit to you for that.
yeah, I shouldn't have written such a rubbish story, but you know, I've
No,
got
you're
good
right.
reviews
You're
on my
right.
new book. So there you go.
Well, but those things stay with you, don't they? And one of the, I taught a lot of, one thing I'm really conscious of is not giving the impression that I was a brilliant teacher, because I really taught a lot of very bad lessons. But one thing that I learned early on from another teacher was that praise is your best weapon in your arsenal. No
Definitely.
matter how difficult the class or how challenging the group, and it has to be genuine and sincere. But when you praise somebody, it kind of becomes self-fulfilling prophecy almost. Those things stay with you, don't they? How you feel in your English classes or in any class, I think stays with you
It's
for
that
a long
old
time.
saying of, if those who say they can and those who say they can't
Yeah,
are true,
exactly,
and they're accurate,
exactly,
you know.
exactly.
Lyth says in the chat, I was terrible with grammar and I still am. Pro Writing Aid and Grammarly are massive helpers. I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts on using things like that?
yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, whether you're a good writer or not isn't dependent on your grammar, is it? It's not dependent on your punctuation, and there are editors and things that can sort that out. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
I
your
agree.
creativity and your flair.
They are two things I do use very
Yeah,
regularly.
yeah,
But one thing I have got a thing to say about, say, technology, spelling. When you're spelling on your phone or on anything now, you just you click it and change the spelling. People don't learn how to spell the word anymore.
I know, it's true. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day as well about handwriting. Somebody asked me, what do I think schools will be like in 30 years? And I was thinking, I wonder if we'll still learn handwriting, because I can't even really remember the last time I had to handwrite something, really.
I write quite often,
Yeah, fair
but
enough. Well, that's that
but
theory
not.
gone.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that don't. I mean, people still write longhand, which absolutely blows my mind.
Really, yeah.
Mary says, still, that's very true. There's nothing like positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
Lyth says, my spelling is a nightmare. But you spelled that right, so
Yeah, you spelled
yeah,
nightmare right, yeah.
yeah, there you go. Well done. Positive engagement.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
let's get the next question in. If you could, these are the ones you've probably seen.
Yeah,
If you could take any character from fiction, TV, film, literature, what character would you take? A, what would you do with them in a story? And B, if they were real, if you brought them back to life for a real life person, what would you do with them?
Oh, it's such a good question, and it's just one that I should have prepared an answer to. Well, look, I've already said I love Catcher in the Rye, and I don't know if anybody hasn't read it, but I just think it's a brilliant book about coming of age and adolescence and finding your place in the world and purpose and all those things. And I'm a bit obsessed with Holden Caulfield, the main character in that. I would bring him back. What would I do with him? I think we'd just go for a pint, wouldn't we? And just chew the fat and talk about all the things that, sincerity and what life's about. And I think we'd have a good chat.
Do you think a pint would be the drink of choice?
That's a good question, isn't it? I think he's more of a whiskey person. Yeah, maybe we'd have a
Perhaps, yeah.
whiskey. Yeah.
Okay, so drinking, a bit of a
Yeah.
conversation. Okay, if you could change the ending to anything, again, TV, film, or literature, what would you change it to?
Blimey.
It is a tough one,
It's a really tough one.
but it
Another
doesn't
one that
have to be a good or a bad reason. Could
okay.
be either.
Well, why not? Why don't we take one of Shakespeare's tragedies and give it a happy ending? Why don't we have, Macbeth happily, I don't know, becoming king and reigning over a prosperous Scotland with
Why
a
not?
happy marriage.
Yeah, that's a happy ending. Fantastic. Excellent. Okay. Oh, actually, I've got two questions in here. Two more. I've added one.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's going to be a bit of an unusual question for you,
Okay.
because you've only written this one book and it's based
Yeah.
kind of it's a fiction, non-fiction.
Yeah.
If you look back on your life, what
Mm,
would success look like for you? And we'll just leave it at that because we don't know where the book's things going just yet.
blimey. Well, what I would hope is that, as I said, I taught for 10 years. I'm on a break at the minute, but, it'd be lovely if the book did well. But more than that, I'd love to go back to teaching. I'd love things to change, for the current education secretary to change. I'd love, schools to become just more fun again. And I'd love to go back to teaching. And so I think a success for me would be to end my career in the classroom.
Fantastic. Perhaps you could, perhaps you could go and work in a college next, or somewhere with difficulties, and then, or maybe not their difficulties, but somewhere else,
Yeah.
and then write your book on that.
Well, yeah, maybe.
It'll be
Maybe.
like you'll have to go and work. That's the thing, work placements, and then write your articles and your
Yeah.
work placements.
Yeah. We'll see if anybody buys this book.
Yeah. See you buy this one first.
Exactly.
Mario says, "Come to New York City and teach,
Oh,
or perhaps bring a
I'd
paddle
love to.
because
Well,
it
I know.
got rained on a lot there
There's
yesterday, was it?
floods, I know, blimey.
Yeah. Mario, did you get wet, by the way? Let us know.
I love New York, though. Isn't it a great city?
I've never been to New York, and it's on my list.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful.
There's a few places. There's Edinburgh, there's Dublin, and New York. So
Yeah.
those three places specifically I'd like to go to.
Excellent places.
Yes. Okay. This is to do with, I guess, your writing as a journalist, perhaps people you've interviewed. If there was one person you'd like to interview in the world, who would that be?
Oh, wow. That is a very good question.
Well, all you're thinking, Mario said, yes, all the trains were down, flooded.
Flooded.
I hope you're okay, Mario. But you must be because you're watching the show, so thank you.
Yeah. I
And
hope
stay
you're not watching
safe.
it from some bunker somewhere.
You sat on a little thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh gosh, what an interview. Well, I've been really lucky for my job at for the last 4 years. I've been working at Radio 2 and as a producer and planning lots of interviews. And some of the people that I would really love to interview, we've had in, and we've had Stephen Fry, who is high on my list. We've had David Attenborough in.
Incredible.
And so I got to sort of plan interviews with those people, which was just an absolute joy. Who else would I add to that? I don't know really. Well, actually, I'll tell you exactly who. I'd love to interview Gavin Williamson, the Education Secretary of the UK,
Wow.
because I've got a few choice.
Can we make that happen? And I'll mitigate between the two of you.
You think you'd have a tough job because I'd be having to hold.
Yeah, but I'd say I'd do that, but I just kind of sit back and let you go.
Yeah, or Michael Gove, one of his
Yeah,
predecessors. I think Michael Gove is perhaps even worse.
Wow, that would be great to watch. On this show, we'll just put the two of you in there, and I'll just sit in the corner, really awkwardly, like cheering or booing. Yeah, fantastic. I think that question I only put on tonight, and I had a little think about it.
Good
For
question,
me,
yeah.
Billy Connolly is someone I would absolutely love to get on.
Yeah.
Despite his, a bit
Yeah.
earlier in his life.
Yeah, absolutely. What a man.
That is the ultimate comedy for me. The kind of stories that he portrays are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And what a character, and an accent is incredible as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Very good choice.
So, guys, watching in the chat now, please send in some questions for Ryan, and we will do the new family member. Whilst we're doing that, that's the time to pop some questions in to Ryan, to myself, to both of us. Anything you want within sort of reason, send them in, and we'll get part 3 on. But first, let me play this video, and we'll get the new family member sorted out. So tonight's new family member, we had a good reaction from Wednesdays, by the way, the Marilyn Monroe that was up there. Ryan, you need to choose a GIF. Do you know what a GIF is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like a animated thing.
That's the thing. I have to ask because we had in ranking on of all people who thought we said gift, and he actually ended up sending a physical one of a kind beer mat with his signature on to someone.
Oh wow,
which is incredible and nice of him. So I got to check. So this person is Sarah Cordy, and her Twitter's at Sarah Cordy. I do words, her bio says. Well done. Radio newsreader in the olden days. Former comms bod for leading trade bodies. Now self-unemployed writer of fiction. Well, I like that. She has 581 followers, and she has followed the show. So can we give her a welcome? Ryan, what GIF are we going to send that person?
Oh, can we do like a applause?
Oh, what? Sorry?
Is there an applause GIF?
Oh, a clapping GIF. Yeah. Applause. Absolutely, why not? If you're watching this now, or you're listening back, or watching it back, it doesn't really matter when. Send them a GIF and say thank you. Not thank you, but welcome to the show. Otherwise, it may be a bit weird. But yeah, fantastic. Sarah Cordy.
I wonder where she was a newsreader. What radio station?
Let me just... I doubt it'll be on there, but let me have a look.
Maybe she can let us know.
Oh, I don't think she'll be that quick.
No, that's maybe at some point.
Yeah, at some point. Ask her. So when you tweet her, ask her what station she was working for, or might still be working for.
Yeah.
I've got her page open. Doesn't say really.
Okay, well.
She's from Hertfordshire.
Okay. Great.
And her background on Twitter is a big city of some sort. So longing for the big city, perhaps. Okay. Just our basement, Mario says, but no serious damage. His house. So we did get a bit wet.
Yeah.
Both unlucky and lucky at the same time, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, guys, send your questions in, and I will ask Ryan those after this video. If I can find it. There it is. So it's still weird listening to those little videos. I only brought them in last week, and each one of the soundtracks to those videos has been a part of the podcast in the previous times. So it brings back a bit of nostalgia.
That's great. Yeah, they're very good.
So Mario says I'm all washed up.
Oh.
Yeah, he had a clean while he could. We haven't asked these questions for a long time. I'd like to get your opinion on some of these. Why not? Let's throw them out there. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
A hard yes.
Oh, hard yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's normally a hard no, or I don't mind.
No, yeah, that sweet and sour thing, absolutely.
Fantastic. That's excellent. That is good. What about you're from the UK as well, so perhaps Dairy Milk or Galaxy?
No, that is the hardest question you've asked yet. I think Galaxy's sort of smoother.
It is.
So I've got some Galaxy in the fridge, if I'm being completely honest with you. So I would go Galaxy.
Where is the fridge? Is it really far away? Because that looks massive.
It's in the kitchen.
Right down there somewhere.
It's not that big.
Yeah. Are you a Star Wars or a Star Trek fan?
Oh, controversially, neither.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I know. I'm not really a sci-fi person. I would like to be, but just
Okay.
I would like to be.
What do you watch? Or are you into TV? Or I know you said you listen to radio, kind of stories and things like that.
Yeah, well, I watch terrible, trashy things. I mean, actual trash. Like you watch RuPaul's Drag Race.
I've never actually seen it.
No, it's a good show. It is genuinely. It's quite it's trashy, but it's kind of good trash.
Well, I think my trash thing that I watch at the moment. I hate reality TV. I can't stand it.
Yeah,
but I absolutely love Gogglebox.
Do you?
Yeah, I don't know why.
It's a good show, isn't it?
You're just watching people sat watching telly. It is bonkers.
What a concept! I sometimes think about that show. Can you imagine the meeting at Channel 4 where somebody was pitching it? And says, why don't we just film some people watching TV? Like, it's a brave...
Get out.
Yeah,
out now,
exactly.
out the office,
Yeah, but
and then
it's a
suddenly
really,
it's like, what?
I love that. It's a really brave commissioner who says, "Yeah, let's do that." That's a great idea, isn't it?
But that was great to watch anyway. But then to add the celebrities in, you've got
Yeah.
people like Tom Jones in there now, and it's just ticks all the boxes, doesn't it?
I know it's funny because I work with Jeremy Vine at the minute, and he's on Celebrity Gogglebox, and he's been telling me all the
Is he?
yeah,
I've
yeah,
not
he's
seen
been
him on
on
there. I don't think.
he's been on a few in the last few months, and he was saying that they sometimes sort of pause the video they're showing them and then ask them to discuss it.
Oh,
So
really?
it's kind of a little bit produced, like that. So I suppose it's inevitable, but
That is that is good. But at the same
yeah,
time, if you're really into what you're watching, that's going to be really annoying.
yeah, I know, yeah. I probably shouldn't be saying that, but yeah,
No, no,
apparently.
it's I doubt they're going to watch this, but I appreciate that insight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
fantastic. So we got a question in there, and it's from Mario. He seems to be floating around and asking us. He said, "Would you ever write fiction inspired by stories from your years of teaching?" Kind of have.
Yeah, it is a good question. Yeah, I suppose it's the weird thing where I was saying, although this book is non-fiction, um, what I find, and I don't know if anybody else has tried to write non-fiction, but it kind of becomes a weird blur of fiction and non-fiction because you have to change all the names. For a lot of the kids, we changed the genders, we changed the ethnicities, we played with the timeline to move things around a bit. So everything absolutely happened, but it does become this slightly fictionalized version, and particularly if there are kids we're talking about sensitive things with. There's bits where I talk about really serious things like kids who are abused or had really difficult home backgrounds, or there was violence at home. I think the lawyers were quite rightly, very keen that that they're not identifiable, and that's absolutely as it should be. But it does then become this weird, slightly fictionalized thing. So, with some of the details changed. So, yeah, I would love to have a brain to write fiction. I really admire people who write fiction. I don't think I have that brain, so I think I will stick to non-fiction for now. Mario.
Fantastic. Thanks for that question, Mario. Anya has a question. Thank you. And this is great. She says, "What are the best and worst teachers from a book, TV, or
Ah,
movie?" I like that question.
that is a great question. I think the best teacher from a book is Miss Honey from Matilda by Roald
Oh
Dahl.
yeah.
You know Matilda?
Hmm.
Um, and she's like the just really well. For a start, Miss Honey is such a great name for a character, isn't it? For somebody who's a good teacher, and she's a sort of perfectly calm, under control, always happy and interested, and that's what I thought I was going to be like as a teacher. I thought I was going to be like Miss Honey. Turns out I was like. I think I say in the book, I was like her demented evil twin.
Oh no.
Yeah, she's the teacher I aspired to.
Is it Sarah Paulson that was Miss Honey?
Well, that's a good question.
Because I've been watching like American Horror Story, which is
Yeah,
and Ratcheted, things like that, which are quite horror
yeah.
based and quite out there. And I'm sure she very much resembles her.
Yeah. That's yes. I don't know off the top of my head, but
I'm gonna have to Google that right now.
do that. Yeah,
When I'm doing that, on that question that Anya asked,
yeah.
have you seen things like what's that one Jack Whitehall did?
Oh, Bad
Bad
Education.
Education. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I thought it was good.
I
And
thought
there's
it was
obviously
good.
teachers as well. From back in the day, the Andrew Lincoln sitcom.
Amazing.
Um,
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were both good actually. Um,
Matilda. Okay, I've got the Wikipedia page. I know I need the cast, right? That's what I need. 1996, that film came out.
was it really? Gosh,
Yes. Okay, I need to find the cast. Matilda, no, no, it wasn't. It was M. Beth. That's a weird name. M. Beth Davids, whoever that is, Miss Honey.
there you go.
So not Sarah Paulson.
But looks like her.
Yeah, kind of. Okay. We don't have many questions in there, guys. So if you do have any, send them in now. Ryan, where can people find your book? And I've mentioned the website, but Do you know what that is so you can tell people?
Yeah, my website is ryanwilson.info. Yeah, I mean the book's in all the normal places. It's I on thank you. And on the hottest day of the year, I sweated my extremities off recording the audiobook. There
So
is an
you
audiobook.
did do it yourself?
I did it myself, yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
It was fun. I was saying to you before we started, there was some discussion about voices, which I think is always a thing in audiobooks, isn't it? And I can't really do voices, and if I did, they would all be offensive. So there it's kind of without voices, but it
I
was
think
it was a,
you've got one of the really tough, as in narrating an audiobook, you have one of the toughest, right? Because you've got so many different characters and they're all kind of young voices. So
I know.
you need a serious talent to do that.
Well, no, I mean, I didn't have a serious talent, but I did it. I did it anyway. But I sort of think, when I listen to audiobooks, I quite like it when the author does it. Because I sort of think you're getting so much of it is about the emphasis you put on different words, isn't it, or the way you choose to read it. And I think when the author reads it, at least you're getting what they wanted, for
Definitely.
better or worse. The other thing I find really interesting and was that when we were doing it on the day, I would have written in the book, I have done something, and I'd read, I've done something instead of I have, and the producer would say, go back and read it again. You have to read exactly what you wrote. And I had no idea they would do that, but you have to read exactly word for word what you wrote. You're not allowed, contractions like that. Because he said that apparently people follow along with the audiobook and the Kindle at the same time.
Oh, no way.
And maybe people who find reading difficult or whatever. So you have to read exactly what you wrote, but that is a good thing. It was
Yeah.
a little bit frustrating in the moment when you're for the 500th time, you're like, okay, I'll read it again.
Yeah, no more, please.
Yeah, exactly.
We got 2 more questions, which we can
Great.
fit in. We got a couple of minutes left. So, Sarah, hello. She says, "What's your favorite underappreciated novel?"
Oh, that is a very good question. Underappreciated. I don't know if it's underappreciated, but I'm a big Ian McEwan fan. So I love all his books. I suppose one of the ones that I think is underappreciated within the context of Ian McEwan is Saturday. I think it's one of the best books I've ever read, all kind of set on one day. So if you haven't read it, I'd highly recommend Saturday by Ian McEwan.
I will check that out. I have not read that. I'll put it on a list. Big list, by the way.
Big list, yeah.
Yes. And one final one we'll squeeze in, and this is from Linda. Thank you. I've been curious about the Teacher's Lounge. How close is it to the TV representation?
Yeah, I think in the UK we tend to call it a staff room. Well, look, I sort of feel a bit beholden to not reveal everything. It's full of teachers discussing teaching and learning, talking about pupils politely, never bitching or complaining or moaning or telling funny stories about teachers, about pupils. Oh yeah, it's probably, as you imagine, there's a bit of that goes on.
I can imagine, definitely. Thanks for that question, Linda, and everybody else. Just a point to mention before we do shoot off. I mentioned the Halloween party on Wednesday's show, which is was Friday before Halloween, and the writing prompt story that you guys can get involved with. But we didn't say about a theme, and last year was horror in the cafe, night cafe or something like that, and we read it out and it was very funny. So please submit any ideas you might have, what kind of scene you want us to build, and then each of us can write a part of that story, which will be read out on Halloween. What do you think of that, right? It was a very interesting story we did last year.
That
and everybody
sounds
writes
great.
a little tiny paragraph and we read it out together.
I love that. What a great idea.
It's not bad. Linda says, in response to your question, I've always imagined it having tons of coffee and chugging a chain smoking.
Yeah, I mean that's some of the more acceptable stuff.
Oh, really? Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think it's kind of like teachers and nurses are the crazy ones that when they get this staff night out, they're just bonkers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, were you kind of in school that when you had your summer holidays, you had 6 weeks to do all your work and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So how much time of work was taken up in those 6 weeks?
I used to mark exam papers for GCSE and A level, so that tended to take up most of it. Then by the time results, GCSE results are in the middle of August, so you go in for that, and then it's A level results, and then you're sorting out problems arising from those. So
it's
I
not like
mean,
everybody thinks, oh, 6 weeks
it
off,
is
what a job.
not like
It's
that,
not
and you
like
don't
that,
finish
no.
it. You don't finish at 3:30 either.
Just pop the balloon for everybody that wants to be a teacher now.
I know. But it is great. It is great.
It is great. It must be a very rewarding job, and I praise you for having done that for 10 years. So well done. And guys, please do check out Let That Be a Lesson. It is out now. It's got great feedback so far. So, Ryan, all I can say is thank you so much for taking the time out on your wonderful holiday to come and speak to us. It's incredible.
What an absolute honour. Thank you.
No worries. Appreciate the time. Thank you guys on the chat who have spent your time as well watching this. Appreciate that very much. And again, if you can support through Patreon, check that out. It's very much worth doing and supports the show. Other than that, we'll see you next week. I've already put on the Patreon who is on next week's show, which you can go and see right now. Mario says, great show, thank you very much. And other than that, please stay safe. People like Mario in New York, where it's flooding everywhere, anything like that, just keep yourself safe, guys. And, we appreciate you doing that as well. From us, thank you. And, stay safe. Bye, guys.